Warning, this show may contain some crude humor and mild swearing. Listener discretion is advised. The show was produced by Geek Happy Network, creators of the very best in audible oracle entertainment. In other words, podcasts. If you enjoy listening to Smörgåsbord, remember to subscribe to the show in Spotify or on your favorite podcast app. Remember to leave a review. We'd love to hear your thoughts. This is Smörgåsbord!
There's this fun tradition in the Czech Republic of keeping carp in the bathtub during Christmas.
Ma-Czech-Carp?
It's a magic carp. Or is it a pet? Is it a food? Or can it be both?
Would you eat your pet?
I don't know.
How do you feel about eating Fluffy?
Well, we're going to be here to find out. I'm Mick, and here is my co-host,
Angel.
And welcome to Smörgåsbord, a show
Smörgåsbord.
where we explore the rituals, myths, and all things strange about the world of food. So, like we said, today we're talking about carp,
Magic-Carp.
magic carps, in the bathtubs in Christmas in the Czech Republic.
I hope they have big tubs.
Yeah,
It's kind of mean to keep fish in your tub.
yeah. Well, it's better, I guess, than putting it in like a bowl or whatever.
This is true.
But yeah, I heard the story when we went to Prague last year, and apparently it's a thing. This lady.
I went to Prague last year.
Did you?
No, not last year. The year before.
Oh.
The year before. 2016.
So the year before the year before the
Yeah.
year before.
Wow, it's been that long.
Yeah.
All I did was eat, but I did not eat any carps.
No. Did you ever hear about the story of the carp in the bathtub?
Not at all.
Oh. Well, it's a pretty cool one, I think.
You should very much explain it to me.
Yeah, so we'll go through a little bit of it. I heard you did some research into carp festivals, so we'll find some time to talk about that too. That sounds cool.
I tried to do some research, but I got very distracted.
By magic carps?
Video games,
Oh,
but not the
fair
Magic
enough.
Carp variety.
Not Pokemon Go or
No, I actually, did you know that there was a Magic Carp game that I played for a little
What?
bit? You raise your Magic Carp and then you make it battle by jumping to see whose Magic Carp can jump the
Oh,
highest.
I think I've heard about this.
It's actually really cute.
And then eventually, every time you lose or something, your magic carp just gets stronger or whatnot.
Yeah, you can train your Magic Carp, but mine got taken away by a Spearow
What?
as he was jumping midair.
Oh, that's so sad.
So you can lose your Magic Carp
Oh man,
due to unfortunate
Can it-
circumstances.
they evolve, right? Can they evolve in this
Not
one?
in this game. They
What?
don't. They're just Magic Carps forever.
That game sounds ridiculous
It
in a
is
good
ridiculous.
way. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So I don't. Obviously, in the Czech Republic, I don't think they have magic carps. In
Or
Pokemon
so you
sense,
know.
or so we
Maybe
know.
on the DL.
Yeah. But for those people who don't know, the Czech Republic is located in Central Europe. It's to the east of Germany and to the north of Austria. And in fact, for maybe a lot of people don't know, it's actually a very old country rich with culture. It's a lot. At some point, it was during the time of the Austrian-Hungarian Empire, for example, that was where kind of the center of the world was. So you could think of it as like, I don't know, the New Jersey.
New Jersey.
No, I guess not. But Prague was a pretty big and prominent city back
Back in
hundreds
the
of
day.
years ago. Yeah.
And you can tell because all the architecture there and it's just beautiful.
Yeah.
And like you can tell that in the past this was a rich AF.
Yeah,
country.
exactly. Like, oh man, there were so many. It's a beautiful city.
It is.
It was like it was, I think, for the longest time, it was the city I wanted to go to. Like, top of my list. So when I got there, I thought I'd be like overhyping myself. But then I got there and it like exceeded the expectations that I had, which were already high.
So you didn't have the Paris syndrome.
No.
That's when people
Oh
go
God,
to
yeah.
Paris and get very disappointed by
See, yeah.
how smelly it is.
Yeah.
Or how not as romantic as I
Yep.
thought it was from
Mhm.
seeing it on
Yeah.
Instagram.
Yeah, actually, Paris for me was the least attractive city I wanted to go to in France or in Europe in general. And when I got there, it was the opposite of Prague, where I already had such low expectations, and it still sucked.
Even lower.
Yeah,
Wow.
I mean, the first day there, I got mugged, so
Oh no.
that was fun. But then we mugged her back, so
Oh,
suck on
that
that.
sucks. You got mugged by a crazy lady?
It was like a family, like a mom and kids, and they were stabbing us with pens because they were trying to get us to sign stuff.
Oh, what?
Yeah, then they took my wallet, and my brother's like, "Do you have your wallet?" I'm like, "No," and he walks up to the girl and just grabs the wallet from her. It's like, "This one?" I'm like, "Yeah."
Wow, this makes me want to go to Paris less.
Yeah.
And it's actually on the bottom of my to-go list.
And then we tried to scream for the police, and no one was like, nobody really cares. I mean,
how do you say police in French?
I don't know. My dad was just screaming police.
Oh.
We looked like a bunch of crazy Asians, I think, and everyone was like, "What are these people doing?"
Why are they yelling?
It's racism. Anyway, the one interesting fact I found out about the Czech Republic when I was there was nowadays the Czech Republic is one of the most, or if not one of the most secular country in the world. Meaning most of them don't have any kind of formal affiliation to any kind of religious institution. According to a Pew Research study in 2017, 72% of Czechs don't identify to a specific religious group. Or, in fact, in Eastern Europe, Estonia comes far next to Czech Republic with 56. Most of Central and Eastern Europe are somewhere where majority of people believe in some kind of religion. But aside from the Czech Republic and Estonia, really the rest of Europe still are majority religious believers, and Czech Republic seems to be the most secular of all of them.
Nice.
If we want to compare this to us in Canada it's about 57% of people don't identify to a religious group, and in the United States it's about 39%. Of the 72% of Czechs who don't identify to a specific group, 46-ish% describe their religion as nothing in particular, while 25% identify as atheist.
That's pretty high.
Yeah. Pretty high.
For a place with such beautiful churches.
Yeah, right? So, interestingly enough, it wasn't always like that for the Czech Republic, like you mentioned, and from my experience as well being in Prague, there's a lot of churches there. So, for as late as the early 20th century, the Czech Republic was widely Christian, mostly Roman Catholic, as this is quite evident when you go travel there. If we want to know a little bit of what happened, well, without going much into it, the fall of religion or Christianity for the Czech Republic in part was the move to independence from the Habsburg monarchy in the early 1900s. As Roman Catholicism, the primary religion back in the Czech Republic, was associated as part of the monarchy, so upon independence, the Czech people eventually moved away from the church.
This goes back to our last episode.
Yeah, of transmorgation.
Substantiation.
Yeah.
That word.
Yeah, so over the past few decades, eventually religion just kind of, or Christianity just kind of disappeared from the Czech Republic. This doesn't mean, though, that most of them are just like anti-spiritual or whatnot. I think nowadays there's a bigger movement towards more individualized spiritualization or whatever for them. Some of them are
not
still
organized religion.
Yeah, not really organized. Like some of them still believe in magic or superstition and stuff like that. But as the Czech Republic does have a history of being Christian or Roman Catholic, Christmas then became a big part of the country's culture. As for any country, they celebrate Christmas a bit differently from everybody else. They have their own specific cultures and rituals that come into it. For instance, rather than Santa Claus bringing presents on Christmas Day, they celebrate Christmas by believing in, I'm going to butcher this, Jezíšek, or baby Jesus, who brings gifts on Christmas.
Czech.
Oh.
And he said my pronunciation of chimney cakes is awful.
Chimney cakes?
Yeah. You know, those they're kind of hollow.
Yeah.
You wrap it around like a hot iron thing. And it
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That is an Eastern Central Europe thing.
Tridelnik. I don't know. I'm
yes.
definitely saying it wrong.
Yeah, it's like Trudelnik or something.
Tridelnik.
Yeah. Actually, I remember having those. And they have ones with Nutella and
so
strawberry.
Good.
Oh, yeah.
That's where all my travel money went.
Yep. Essentially, it was that and gelato when I
I had a lot of goulash in Tridelnik.
I didn't have a lot of that. I did in Prague. We went on a beer tour with my brothers. Man, did we have so many stories about Prague. We got drunk with a bunch of Swedish people, actually.
Nice.
I can't remember their names. Anyway, it was the funniest experience of my life because, usually here in North America as an Asian, in the dating scene, you're not like seen in the higher levels of attraction by most people.
Mm.
But then there we were hanging out with these 3 Swedish guys, and they're not the most they're attractive enough, I guess. And they started talking about their insecurities about how like, oh, we're never gonna get a girl hanging out with you guys. Like, you're gonna
With
get
you guys, like
all the
specific-
girls, and we're like, why? 'Cause you're like Asian and stuff. I'm like, wait, what?
Oh, I thought it was a diss at first.
Yeah, I thought it was a dish because in North America it's the opposite experience.
Oh,
My
so they
brothers are
think all
like,
the
maybe we
girls
should
want
move
you
to
guys-
Europe.
Hey, I want to move to Europe. Let's
Yeah.
go.
But yeah, no, we ended up hanging out. We had such a great time. We met a few people from all around the world. I think we even, oh, that was a different country. But anyway, it was great. But yeah, Trudelnick's great.
Oh, love it.
But going back to Christmas in the Czech Republic, yeah. So for them, instead of Santa Claus, they believe Jay-Z Jesus, baby Jesus brings their gifts on Christmas Eve. Saint Nicholas or Miklaus is the saint who Santa Claus is based on. Actually, they also believe he makes an appearance in December 5. But it's important to note here that it isn't Santa Claus, the man in red that we know. They actually, some people might even be offended if you call him Santa Claus. To them, Saint Nicholas is, or
I bet
Saint
he dresses
Niklaus
more
is.
sensibly.
Yeah, he is believed to appear in bishop's garb,
Oh,
like
maybe
traditional
not.
bishop's garb, and accompanied by an angel and a devil who come bringing gifts. So in some way, there's this whole naughty and nice thing still going on. But
Wait, does the devil also give gifts?
I think the devil gives bad gifts,
Like a
like the shitty
potato?
gifts. Yeah,
Like a moldy potato.
like a rock. I don't know, something like that.
Nice. I mean, you can paint rocks.
Yeah,
It's a hobby.
yeah. Some people have pet rocks. That was a
Oh.
thing back in the day. Yeah,
Uh,
pet rocks. When it comes to food, there are a ton of different customs in Christmas as well that revolve around, well, food. For instance, they believe that during Christmas dinner, you could tell your fortune by cutting an apple in half and counting the number of corners in the core. Four corners on the core is bad luck, while 5 is good luck.
Corners.
Yeah, so when you
think-
cut the apple core, it'd be like corners.
Oh,
Yeah.
I guess I never cut
Corners.
an
hap-
apple in half. I
just
just kind of eat them.
Eat it. Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah, but for them, they cut it in half. Another one apparently is using shells of walnuts as tiny boats in water to tell your fortune. So the way this works
Oh,
is,
that's cute.
yeah, you get a little water basin of sorts, I guess. You put the walnut shell, you put a little candle on the walnut shell and let it float on the water. There's a bunch of different things that could happen here from what I've read. If it stays at shore, if it doesn't move, you don't expect any changes in the year. If it sinks right away, you're probably going to die. If
Oh,
it touches
that's harsh.
other boats, you're going to expect friendship. So a lot of it's, kind of based on how, pretty straightforward, I guess.
Don't let a nut tell you your future. You
Yeah.
make your own future.
Well, this one, some of it's the candle too. So if the candle dies out, you're going to have complicated emotional relationships.
Emotions.
Yeah, so something like that. I like the one when it spins in a circle. It's just you don't know what to do with your life. So I think that's
I
mine.
feel like, yeah, same. Same. Maybe we should try this walnut thing.
Yeah.
I feel
we
like
could.
it would just sink unless the candle is really tiny.
Yeah, we should. I thought that'd be fun. We'll try the walnut thing. But we
Okay.
won't do it in Christmas. We'll just do it for fun.
Midsummer.
Hopefully not all of them
Midsummer
sink.
walnut
Yeah.
divination.
Yeah, right. Another one that you might actually enjoy is that apparently if you fast for a day from the morning of the 24th, you open yourself to the opportunity of seeing a vision of a golden pig. Which if you see it, you're either going to likely pass out from hunger, but at least it'll be a sign of good luck.
If you wake up again.
So essentially, if you hunger yourself enough, you might see a pig, which I
What
think
if
is
you don't see a pig?
delusional. I don't know. Well, if you don't see a pig, then you just don't have good luck. You're just
Oh,
going to
that
have
sucks.
luck of different sorts.
Someone can
Um,
totally troll me and just like wave a pack of bacon in my face. It's like this used to take the form of a pig.
Yeah. It's gold. We put, I don't know, coloring on it.
Don't paint the bacon.
Yeah. They also believe in certain foods giving protection against evil, such as garlic and honey. Another tradition is Christmas dinner, which revolves around the carp, which we're going to focus more on today.
Magic-Carp.
Exactly. Traditionally, a Christmas dinner in the Czech Republic would consist of carp soup, fried carp, and potato salad, which is what, again, inspired us to do the episode in the first place. So what is it about this carp? Why do they even keep it in the bathtubs and all of that?
Where do you get the carp?
Yeah.
Do you get it at the supermarket?
Well,
Do you catch it yourself with your bare hands?
where they get the carp is usually it's from markets who sell carp. During Christmas time, they arrive in these big vats of carp that you just kind of pick and buy your own.
Like instead of a Christmas turkey.
Yeah,
And they're
exactly.
alive.
Yeah. For those people who don't know, the carp used for this tradition is nothing special. It's the common carp, or also known as the European carp. It's actually native to Europe. That's why it's called the European carp. And it's not the best fish in the world, and it's pretty it's like Hawaiian pizza, I guess. Like some people like them, some people don't. It's a slimy bottom feeder fish, and I know that usually we associate bottom feeder with something negative in metaphoric terms. In terms of fish, it doesn't necessarily mean they're bad fish being bottom feeder.
They could be delicious.
Yeah, if you think about it, if you think about other bottom feeder fish, lobster, halibut, those are all bottom feeder fish, and they're usually pretty expensive and well liked by most people. So just bringing it up, bottom feeder fish doesn't mean it's a bad thing.
Just metaphorically.
Yeah. But a slimy fish, on the other makes this fish quite unattractive. Today, though, it is the third most frequently introduced species in the world. It's very easy to breed this fish. That's probably why it's one of the most introduced species in the world for farming purposes.
Now, how big is a carp? If you're feeding like Christmas dinner to a big family, can one carp do it?
I've back in my fish cutting days, we used to cut up
Right, you were a fish cutter.
grass carp, and grass carp would come almost the size of a black cod, so it'd be like almost 15 to 20 pounds big.
Ooh,
Probably
wow.
we've seen some that's the size of the length of my whole arm, or even more, just for the body. So they're pretty
Woo.
big. Worldwide, China is the largest producer for commercial purposes of carp, accounting for 70% of the production.
I feel like China's the production of everything.
Right. Like big
They win.
space, big everything. Yeah, they're probably worldwide in everything. On the other hand, the United States did introduce carp in the 19th century for food purposes in the States, but it's rarely eaten today and generally seen as pests. My experience, I went to New Orleans once and they do fried carp there. I think that's maybe one of the few places where it's still pretty common. I love carp. I had it there. Fried carp is really good.
I don't think I've ever had carp. Then again, I can't actually tell the difference between fish.
Right.
Whenever I get fish and chips, they're like, do you want halibut or haddock or whatever? I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, I feel you there. Sometimes it's not between halibut and cod. The only reason you could tell the difference usually is the texture. Cod's much more flaky than halibut, from what I remember.
The only fish
But
I
yeah.
eat recently is just filet o fish.
So gross.
And I don't even know what kind of fish that is.
I think I've had a filet of fish in McDonald's, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've only had that maybe once in my life. I hated it. I can't stand the thought of a filet of fish.
Really? Oh,
Not
wow.
even the thought
It's
of it,
like
yeah.
probably my favorite McDonald's food right now because I have a buy one get one free coupon.
Oh, fair enough. They have the fish and chips thing now, right?
Right.
In McDonald's.
But
Have you tried it?
I don't eat the chips.
Oh,
So it's not
right.
quite worth it.
Fair enough. So yeah, that's a little bit of the carp. How did this little common carp become then such an important part of Christmas for the Czechs?
Because it's magic.
Sure. Very. Magical. Magic carp.
Carp.
One reason is the fact that a common carp is also known as the European carp, like we mentioned, and that means it's native. It's actually native to Central Europe, which includes the Czech Republic. As a native fish, then, the Czechs eventually learned how to grow and farm carps commercially, eventually making the highly available fish. So it's not surprising then to meet families of Czechs with hundreds and hundreds of years ago and generations of carp raising experience. So the Czechs kind of know how to grow carp. That's kind of
Make them big and
the
juicy
thing. Yeah, exactly. Big, juicy, succulent carp.
and slimy.
Yeah. Ew, like slimy,
I would
long
assume that the
fish.
sliminess would
sliming
go
down your
away
mouth.
after you cook it.
Yes and no. It leaves a flavor of sometimes. Because they're bottom feeders, sometimes some fish could be kind of muddy in flavor. But it also
I'm
Also
kind of
depends on
imagining it
preparation.
kind of like an okra.
Yeah, actually, ochre is a good example of what slimy would feel like. Also, since it is really easy to farm and breed carp, carp then eventually became a pretty good economical choice. High supply means it became fairly cheap. So it's a big fish with a lot of meat, sold at low price. It's easy to kind of assume why then the fish became quite a hit in the Czech Republic. But another reason also then comes from the Catholic past of the Czech Republic. As during the holidays, especially during Christmas time, it became common practice to fast or abstain from meat, making fish the protein alternative during the festive season. So usually you'd find a lot of Catholics or whatnot would be fasting or abstaining, meaning they don't eat one meal a day, and also means that they don't eat meat.
Is this a common thing for Lent too?
I think so, yeah.
Because back in LA, I know they have McDonald's actually have specials on filet-o-fish on certain days because they know people aren't eating burgers.
Yeah, exactly. So that's directly related to that too. So it's from the fact that the carp is then native and common in Central Europe, most families end up eating carp during the holidays as well, right? Because they're fasting from meat. So you could say then the history of eating carp during Christmas is a combination of both practical and religious reasons to begin with. But eventually this practical diet then became tradition passed down through the generations. Now another thing that people could wonder about is why then did they use a bathtub for carp? If they eat carp during the holidays, what's the deal with them keeping it in the bathtub?
So
now,
you don't have to buy a tank for one day.
I mean, yeah, exactly. That's pretty much the reason for it. Just like how the practicality of eating carp was because it was so accessible and for religious reasons. The tradition of keeping a carp in the bathroom also roots from practical reasons. As the population grew in the Czech Republic and this tradition formed of having carp during the holidays, demand for carp increased during Christmas. Or the demand for carp also increases during Christmas. Meaning everybody in the Czech Republic wanted carp for Christmas Day. Now imagine this. Everybody wanted a fresh, live fish to buy on Christmas Day. The bigger the population obviously make it harder for logistically for that to happen, especially in major cities like Prague. These cities became a logistical nightmare because everyone chooses to buy the carp in the same day, and because the fish farms weren't actually in the city, they'd have to transport all this carp over to the city. And imagine
and they don't want them frozen.
No. Back then, I think also that was hundreds of years ago. You could assume there's not a lot of
Ice.
freezing technology or ice. Exactly. And there's also the belief that carp was better tasting if you just killed it on the day rather than keeping it cold and keeping it live, which a lot of, generally with fish, that's kind of how it works. So rather than having carp vendors pop up only in Christmas Eve and Christmas Day to account for all the logistics on these cities, a lot of these vendors would appear a few days earlier so people can have more flexibility to buy the carp. But this leads us to a little problem, because the best way to eat carp, which is mentioned, is having it fresh or live. If you kill the carp, you want to kill the carp just before you eat it. So if you buy a carp early, you're left with finding a way to keep the carp alive until Christmas. On the other hand, if you wait too long, you're left to buy whatever carp these vendors have left, which usually means it's not the best choice of carp.
The runts.
Yeah. Or worst case, you're left with no carp at all.
Oh.
So for those buying carp earlier, the big question is, where do you keep a live carp? And naturally...
In the toilet. No. Ew, no.
Maybe if it's a big toilet. Like imagine keeping a 20-pound... It's like, all right,
Just put its face in the water.
It's like, Johnny, is this carp or is this lunch?
Or is it poop?
So yeah, they ended up keeping it in the bathtub because you do want to keep the carp alive and you also want to keep it happy and healthy. And you can't just keep a big fish in a container that fits just the size of fish, because generally for fish keeping practices, different fish require different sizes, and most fish require tens and maybe 100 times the size of their actual size in terms of water size to allow them to swim around and be happy. So bathtub was a pretty good alternative.
You gotta kill them when they're happy.
Yeah, exactly.
Tastes like happy.
Yeah, imagine a stressed carp and it's just not good.
Yeah,
a sad carp will taste sad.
You might, inherit its anxiety.
Exactly. You don't want that in Christmas Day.
No.
Yeah, all your walnuts are going to start sinking. So yeah, it's also a part of it also to believe that by keeping the carp in the bathtub, it makes the carp cleaner. I'm assuming it's because it's the only fish in a very clean tank for a few days. So then it keeps the carp a little bit cleaner than keeping it in a dirty pool of sorts.
With 50 other carps.
Yeah. One conundrum that comes up is when you have a family of young children, because having a fish in the bathtub naturally means the children will
go and poke it.
Yeah, go and poke it and also think of it as a pet. So how do you think a child will act when they see this little animal in the bathtub? They probably will start seeing it as a pet, have a relationship, and maybe name it and all of that. So to no surprise, there's a lot of Czech families out there with horror stories of pet carps mysteriously disappearing. I think actually our tour guide had a similar experience where it was a similar tragic experience where she named her carp and all that, and then the next day the carp was gone. And the parents didn't really have a way to explain it to them.
She should have freed Willie.
Nope.
Oh, I would watch this film.
Yeah.
But a tiny Czech child tries to free the bathtub fish.
And she's being restrained, so you just watch the carp jump over the bathtub.
And then flop on the tiles.
Flop its way into the tiles, jump into the toilet, and sink in.
Flush it.
And get stuck because it's too fat.
Yeah, I really want some bathtub fish. 'Cause it sounds interesting.
Yeah, right? So I guess for the most part, our festive Ma-Czech-Carps.
Ma-Czech-Carps. Pun.
These festive Czech carps, really the history of the bathtub comes from practical and religious reasons, which I think has been a pretty common
through everything
these past episodes.
Welcome to the Church of Hawaiian Pizza.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's a smorgasbord church, I guess, now.
I like that.
Yeah. So a big part of the next part of this, obviously, as we are a food podcast, is looking to how it's cooked and if it actually tastes good. So for Christmas, as we mentioned, carp is used to make two dishes: fried carp and carp soup. The carp soup is often served first, and then the carp and potato, and then the carp soup is often served first, and then the fried carp served as a main course with a side of potato salad. The soup is made from the offal of the fish or its innards, and to some, it's actually said that it's tastier than the fish itself, or the fried fish bit itself. The fish soup usually includes a number of different spices and vegetables. It sounds pretty good. I don't know. So I guess to each their own. I don't know if some people like fish innards, but some.
I don't think I've ever had fish innards.
Right.
I'm not very, what is the word? Experienced in fish eating.
Fair enough.
I think, because my mom doesn't like handling fish.
Oh,
Understandable.
fair
It
enough.
smells. And she's also a vegetarian.
So. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I don't know. My favorite fish is the milk fish, and my favorite part of the milk fish is the innard part. It's like the fatty guts. The fatty guts. It's so good. The main course, on the other hand, as we mentioned, is the fried fish. So they use the carp meat, and it's breaded and fried. To get the carp a little tender and to minimize the smell, it's usually dipped in milk, salted, and sprinkled with lemon juice. It's then covered with flour, breadcrumbs, and egg, and then fried to a crisp.
That sounds good.
Yeah, traditionally.
I just like fried everything.
Yep. Yeah, and it's I mean, like I said, for me, fried carp is pretty good.
It is
probably
like fish
high
and
up
chips,
there.
just with potato salad instead of
pretty much
also fried potato.
Yeah, instead of a fried potato, it's a potato salad. It's a mix of potatoes, peas, onions, carrots, parsley, celery, pickled gherkins, eggs, and mayo. Sounds great.
Mayo.
Yeah. So some Czechs would keep a few scales of the fish in their wallet or purse in hopes that it'll bring prosperity to them for the following year. The big question now, I guess, is is it good?
Yes. I have another question though.
Yeah.
What if you are keeping a fish in your bathtub? How do you take a shower and or bath? Do you jump in?
I guess you kind of bathe with the carp. I guess. I don't know. Maybe
That's
they have.
awkward. It's like, don't look at me.
Yeah. Maybe they use the toilets.
Oh.
But then where do you relieve yourself?
Yeah, exactly.
They might also just
Hose themselves
hose
off outside.
themselves, yeah, or
It's
use
cold over there.
pour water on themselves. Like I don't know, in the Philippines back then, we didn't have not. Sometimes when the shower wouldn't work, we just grab a tub and kind of
Douse
ourselves with water. So that's probably what they did. I'll assume they do it outside or something. That's actually a good question. I don't know. Maybe they jumped in the pool. Or maybe the empty vats of carp now.
Maybe the carp will eat some of the soap. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Or maybe they just don't shower. I don't know.
It's a very smelly Christmas.
Yeah. It's like, is it carp smell or is it
People
smell?
You don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know.
Yep. But yeah, I think again for carp it depends if you like it or not. I like it. Some people don't. With the one issue though that does come up about carp is that it's a very bony fish, so you tend to find a lot of bones in the meat. Which means in Christmas in the Czech Republic, the hospitals are usually
Packed with people
Packed
with
with
like
people
bone shards stuck in their throat.
pretty much.
Yikes.
Yeah.
What do you think the walnut does
Yeah.
for this incident?
I don't know. What?
Just shoots out of the water. Like, nope.
Pretty much. Yeah. But as this is a tradition in a country that is not dying of tradition, but is shifting in their preferences for tradition, today, though, keeping carp in the bathtub and buying carp for Christmas is not as popular as it used to be. In the advent of freezing technology, for example, most families now buy the carp, kill it, and freeze it instead before Christmas, which means they don't have to keep it alive in the bathtub.
Practical.
Yeah, the issues of the kids falling attached to the carp, I think, have a role to play in this
Hey,
as
Johnny,
well.
for Christmas, we're killing your baby pet.
Exactly. And I don't know if you want... I mean, I don't know. I believe that it helps the kid deal with death.
That's true.
I don't know.
It's like, you're eating this.
Yeah.
You should know where it came from.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
bathtub.
I mean, my parents grew up in a farm, so they knew about how animals died and stuff, and they turned out okay. So, I don't know. But even worse, though, is most families, especially younger generations, choose not to even eat carp anymore. Like we mentioned, it's a little bit of a preferential
Passe.
thing. Yeah. So maybe it's a combination of their secular state now, or maybe it's most people no longer fast for Christmas, or they're just general food preferences of people. But most people generally, most of the young Czechs nowadays probably just do away with the tradition, just eat what they want for Christmas.
That sounds good.
Yeah, it's kind of sad though.
Yeah, traditions shift,
Yeah,
unfortunately and fortunately. There's
Yeah.
some real crappy traditions out
Yep.
there.
yeah. So that's kind of the thing about festival carp.
Festival
Festival
I have to say, the Airbnb I stayed in Prague had the biggest bathtub. It was
Really?
massive. I wonder how many carps they could have fit in there.
Yeah, was it a big house or was it
It
a
was
big
an
fam-
apartment,
Oh.
but it was quite large. It was a 2-bedroom apartment, and the hosts actually lived there too.
Right.
And then it's a shared bathroom, and then the bathtub was ginormous.
Really?
And I couldn't figure out how to get it to be a shower,
Right.
and you actually couldn't.
Oh.
So it's either baths or you just kind of sprinkle yourself.
Yeah.
It was strange.
Hmm.
So I'm so used to showers, I don't take baths. Like, who has time for that?
It's a European thing. They find time for things, I guess. I don't know.
Oh, I guess they don't have to work as much as we do.
Yeah. But yeah, I wonder if that's a thing, that bathtubs are bigger in the Czech Republic because of the carp
I
thing.
think it was literally just that one place. I don't know.
Yeah, where did we stay? Oh no, we stayed in like not a hostel, but like a boarding thing.
Boarding place.
Yeah.
Did they have a bathtub?
No.
Well,
It
you
was
know
a
what
sh-
they're
I think
not
it was
getting
a
for
shower,
Christmas.
Yeah. Not carp.
Not carp.
Yeah, we got lucky because the day we got there was the last day of this like American tourist group. So,
Oh,
man,
nice.
the people there look so stressed seeing all these Americans being American.
Yeehaw! I can
thought
say
that
that
was their
because I'm
last day.
American.
Yeah,
Yeehaw!
but it was good. The Czech Republic is fun. I'd recommend anybody go there.
The one thing that I really remember about walking around in Prague is they have these fish tanks where they have the little fish that eat dead skin,
Okay.
and then you pay them, and then you just put your feet in them, and then they will eat all the dead skin off your feet.
What?
Leaving your feet super soft.
Did you try it?
No, because I wanted to spend my money on alcohol.
Could have done both. Beer's so cheap in the Czech.
It was. I'm a one beer wonder, so
Yeah.
I don't know why I
You'd be
didn't
spending
do it.
like 34 crowns for like, it was like 15 crowns even sometimes. I don't know.
It was cheap. Like, I remember, but
Yeah.
I also don't remember a lot because I was drunk.
Oh dear.
Yeah, that was a trip. It was great. I just remember one night, I met up with my friend there. Like, I actually didn't know he was going to be in Prague until maybe a week before. He's like, oh, you're in Europe. I'm going to Prague on these days. I'm like, me too.
Nice.
And then we spent 2 hours because our phones didn't really work.
Right.
Just getting by on bad Wi-Fi, trying to find churros.
Oh. Did you find some?
We found one place, but they were closed by the time we got there. So
wouldn't like the turtlenecks or whatever, would that count as like
turtlenecks?
Trudelneck?
Tridelnik.
Tridelneck?
Tridelnik.
Those are like Czech churros?
Czech churros, I guess. Not quite. They're not fried. They're baked.
They are baked, yes. With a big hole in the middle.
Yeah.
But they're so good.
You put the ice cream ones are especially nice.
Ooh, that one I didn't get to try.
Yeah.
We had gelato and turtleneck, but not at the same time.
Should have mushed them together.
Yeah, should have.
So, how would you kill a carp?
How would you kill a carp? I don't know. My general thing.
Bash it in the head.
Yeah, I mean the bigger
It's
fish is a
turning
little
into
bit
a murder
tricky.
podcast.
But I mean, generally when you kill a fish, you just grab a hammer and whack it in the head till it dies.
Oh.
I don't know if the carp, because it's a bigger fish, but I know when we were dealing with cod, you just kind of do the same thing. I know the lingcod's a little bit bigger. We just kind of run a knife down its neck, so it just kind of kills it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sounds so bloody.
It's either hammer its head or you chop its head off.
And you do this for Christmas, or not you, but
Yeah,
in the
pretty
Czech
much.
Republic.
Yeah. I mean, side note, I can't even remember how to prepare fish anymore. It's been only like 4 months since I stopped doing that. It's like
You blocked it out of your memory.
pretty much. But yeah, I mean, carp are generally fairly scaly fish. I think there are different kinds of common carps, but some of them are pretty scaly. But yeah,
We should find a recipe and try this carp.
yeah, you could buy carp here, so we could.
Can we buy the European cod here?
Probably not.
Carp.
Carp.
Cod.
Card. No, but I'm sure we'll try it
carp.
with a regular carp.
Yeah, I mean, I looked up Czech recipes after I got back. I'm like, ooh, the goulash is so good.
Right.
And I actually couldn't find some of the spices here
Yeah.
that they use.
Oh.
I don't remember exactly. It's some sort of paprika.
Right.
That's not the kind that we get here.
I think Hungarian paprika.
Something like that.
I think
like
regular
smoked,
paprika is.
It's like
Hungarian.
smoked Hungarian
Damn.
paprika. I don't know.
Yeah, we gotta find it. We'll try it.
Yeah, we should try it. You get to kill it.
Sure. I mean, we'll have to serve like a big party if we're gonna get a full carp. It's like a 30-pound fish.
That's fine. We can do that.
I don't know. Let's see. I don't know. I don't know if we can find. If anyone in the Vancouver area knows where to get a live carp.
Please let us know.
Yes, so we could try this out.
Yeah, I'll do the soup.
Yeah. All right.
I don't really know. Do you marinate it? Do you?
No, not really. I mean, it's really not, it's not like fish is very hard to marinate compared to other things.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't make
so.
fish.
You kind of just mix it in. It's more of like it's really good at absorbing flavors when you cook it. So you just cook it.
Oh, okay.
If I remember, pretty sure. At least that's my guess, my experience in cooking. Yeah. Did you have anything else to ask or say about magical carps?
If you had a bathtub carp, what would you name it? Bob.
Bob's carp, or just Bob?
Just Bob.
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 This
I'll
makes
name him
me.
Blob.
This tickles my travel pickle. Like last time that I went anywhere, I didn't go with the intention of eating very localized food.
Right.
But I think
Should.
I've been enlightened.
Yeah.
And my friend's
It's worth
actually in Czech Republic right now. I
Nice.
should ask him about the
Yeah.
carp.
Yeah, you should. Yeah, I mean, when we went, we selectively chose not to trust Google with things and we just asked the locals where to go.
Right. Yeah.
Probably the best thing and best idea.
It's true.
I mean, when we travel generally, that's kind of what we do is we just, even that trip, we're like, okay, we know the 4 locations we want to end up in and we don't have an itinerary. But it was like the best trip ever, so.
No, those are the best. And people keep out, I'm going to Amsterdam. And people are like, oh, what are your plans? I'm like, I don't have one.
Yeah.
It's going to be great. Just going to land.
Exactly. But like I tell everybody, if it's a 24-hour hotel, make sure it's not a love hotel, especially when you're in Japan.
Do they have those in Czech Republic too?
I don't know, but just keep that in mind.
I
when you
have
travel.
stayed at a love hotel before.
I
They were
did too.
very reluctant to give a room to a foreigner, but I guess I whipped out the money. I was like, I need a place to stay tonight, and it's getting really late.
Yep, I did too. I flew into Japan, and I was trying to find a place that would allow people to come, like check in very late, because I came in at like midnight or whatever, and I found this 24-hour thing, and I'm like, oh,
It's a love
this
hotel.
is why it's 24 hours. It's like looking through the flyers, and that's when it occurred to me. So I'm like, this is not food. These are naked women. I'm hungry.
What kind of catalog is this?
I was so hungry. And every time I look outside and see footsteps, it's always like an older man with a younger girl walking through. And I'm like, maybe I'm just going to
Sketch.
sleep in the bathtub today.
With the carp.
But anyway, yeah, that's our episode on
Ma-Czech-Carps.
Ma-Czech-Carps in the Czech Republic. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. What are we eating this week?
Oh, yeah. Shoot. What are we eating this week?
I'm kind of poor right now. So
Yeah. I've been eating a lot of cereal.
What kind of cereal?
Like Nature's Path cereal.
Oh,
stuff.
staying healthy. Where are the Fruit
Well,
Loops?
it was on sale.
Understandable.
Almond milk and cereal.
Nice.
Actually, yeah, bacon and eggs. That's pretty much it.
Similar, but I've been eating granola bars that I
Yeah.
swiped from film sets.
Oh, nice. Oh, actually, we were in LA, or I was in LA a couple weeks ago, and they had this HBO party, and they were serving these tacos that were the tiniest tacos I've ever seen in my life.
Oh, yummy.
They were like the size of my pinky bit. I think we talked about this last week.
Yeah, I remember the tiny tacos.
Yeah.
I'm
So
intrigued.
I guess I'm still full by that because I'm so broke.
Oh,
But anyway, thanks.
poor life.
Yep. Poor life.
Wait.
Support us.
How much do you think a carp would cost if we were to
Pretty
Victory?
cheap. I think the grass carp in TNT was like $6 a pound.
$6 a pound.
Yeah.
So we shouldn't get a 30-pounder because that would get quite
It's gonna be pretty
pricey.
expensive, yeah. Or I think the whole carp was, I don't know. We could check it. I think
We should we
it's
can
like a
scale
$20,
down.
$30 pound fish, I think, if I remember right.
We can scale down and make tiny carp.
It's
Like
a pretty
the
cheap
tiny
fish.
top
I think that might actually be more expensive than I'm saying it is, but it's a pretty cheap fish. But we still have to spend. Yeah.
All right, we're gonna make Christmas happen
Yeah. All right.
real soon.
Tune in at some point.
When
for
we try
Christmas
this, I
carp.
don't know. There might be photos.
Maybe we'll just do it all audio.
It's like, and now here's the fish,
Yep.
and then we can slam it down on the table.
Yeah, we'll have it described. We'll have someone describe it for us.
It's fish-like.
Okay.
Oh, wait, and we need to definitely keep the scales.
Yeah.
For prosperity.
Yes.
We'll also report it and see if that works.
Yeah.
This is Smörgåsbord! Have a food-related ritual, myth, or something strange you want us to explore? Send us a message through Facebook at Geek Happy Network. We'd love to hear from our fellow foodie listeners. And while you're there, remember to subscribe or follow us too. This show was created by Angel Lynn and Mick Narciso, hosted by Angel Lynn and Mick Narciso, editing by Mick, and logo by Angel. Thanks for listening. For more GHN shows like the Monster Slayer's Guide to Slaying Monsters, come give us a listen at geekhappynetwork.com or look for us on your favorite podcast app. Oh, and be sure to follow us on Facebook or Instagram at Geek Happy Network.